This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Tom, welcome in. Good morning. You lost a really tight one to open up conference play against the Tigers. Didn't shoot the ball well. You're a 12.5-point favorite heading into tonight's matchup. Outside of just making shots, what else does this team have to do better in order to get a second consecutive win tonight?
Hey, good morning, guys. Always a pleasure to be with you. You know, it's translating your athleticism onto the court, like making your defense turn into your offense. Because I think this team, half-court offense is one of their, issues. And the more they can generate turnovers, steals, and put them into points, the better. They're a great transition team. I mean, thinking about council dunks and all that. And it seems to me like they're slowly finding their footing without Brazil and Smith. And, hopefully Smith comes back. Hopefully they have to go through another slight transition, but I think they'll be a better team for it. I think one of the most interesting facets of this team is watching on a game-by-game basis who comes off the bench and gives them big minutes. It was Pinion against Ole Miss the other day. There's been games where Jalen Graham has really risen up, the Alabama game. Darian Ford's gotten a little bit of run lately. Barry Dunning got in the other day. Not for long, but just trying to filter some guys in there. So it all adds up to me. LSU's a team that's really struggling. They've taken several home losses, big on-the-chin losses, and probably lacking in a little bit of confidence. Arkansas needs to jump on these guys.
Davonte Davis has been a guy that's really stepped up as of late. Coach was very complimentary of him following the game on Saturday and last night at Eric Musselman Live at Sassy's. Tom, what have you noticed that's been different about Devo these last few games?
Well, the biggest thing, he's shooting the three with a little more confidence, and what a difference that makes when you make threes. You're a better shooter, the crowd's more into it, and it just changes the complexion of games when you can put threes in. And they've had their struggles with that. Also, more minutes. Council's minutes were reduced the other day. I'd like to see him get more in the flow this time. It had been a long time since the media had talked to Davonte. It was before the game that he missed. So we're talking weeks ago. And it was good to hear his voice the other night.
How much of that first game with LSU was this team still trying to figure out Nick Smith and when he would be back, if he'd be back, how to play without him? This team's evolved out of that. How much of that first loss do you think you could pin on the idea that they were still trying to figure out life without Nick Smith at that point?
Right. I think there's a great deal of that. And just to put everyone back into the mental picture of it, I'm sitting in the Letterman's room, or whatever they call the recruiting room, at the Liberty Bowl during the key stretches of the game. And I remember in the press box we were talking, this football game is going to outscore the basketball game because it was just mortal combat, hand-to-hand combat, bad shooting from the three, from the free throw line, from everywhere, from both teams in that game. And I think it's a game now that you look back on, and Arkansas let one get away. The way people are going into Baton Rouge now and winning is becoming pretty commonplace. And you just hate that Arkansas, did not get that win and the Missouri win. But, I think Arkansas is a much better team, and LSU has not won a game since.
Is Devo the key the rest of the way? Not just defensively, but we saw in this previous game with Ole Miss, his three-point shooting, his offensive numbers go up. Is Devo the key player down the stretch in your mind?
Well, he's certainly a component, or one of the biggest keys. When you think about when their half-court offense struggles, but when he can drive in the lane and what he creates out of it, it's just being under control a little bit more. There's 2 or 3 times in the game, 2 or 3 passes he makes that you're like, well, why? Why does that have to be a no-look? Is it cooler to throw a no-look than it is to just look at the guy and pass it to him? Because the turnovers can be a problem. And he actually talked about that the other night, how, we're such good athletes and we all, expect good things from each other that sometimes we try to throw passes into windows that are just too tight, or, the guy's, back cutting and somebody gets a hand in the way, things like that. So he is a key, and his maturity is a big part of whether Arkansas is going to succeed, because he's he's kind of a glue guy, and he just needs to tighten the turnovers up a little bit more, and that will put Arkansas on its way.
Tom, we asked the question in hour 2, is this team an NCAA tournament team without Nick Smith Jr.? Let's say he comes back and then doesn't play, or he doesn't play much at all, and that they just look out of sync. Based on what you've seen and based on kind of where they've shifted as of late, can you see this team making the NCAA tournament without getting Nick Smith Jr. back?
Oh, that's a good question. Got to get a road win or two, and I would say maybe 2. You got some really tough games coming up. Still got to play Tennessee. Still got to home and away with Kentucky, which is playing well, and still got a road game at Alabama. So I don't know. I think all the analysts have them in, and that has to do with their strength of schedule and stuff. But you got to win some games against it as well. I think they can be an NCAA tournament team at 10-8 in the league. Certainly, if they can get to 11-7, I think they're in. But let's hope that we don't have to go through that mental exercise, and that Nick Smith comes back and they really make a push, as Eric Musselman's teams have done the last 2 years.
I know Dallas Cowboy fans have been dealing with a lot of stuff mentally. Kellen Moore is reportedly getting interviewed for the Carolina Panthers head coaching vacancy. Tom, in your opinion, what should the Dallas Cowboys do based on another disappointment in the playoffs?
Well, I'm not as intimate with their roster and the details that, what they need to do. I like their double backs. I don't know what the contract status of Pollard and Elliott are. I like that, though. CeeDee Lamb is, I think, going to be one of the top receivers in the league for a few years running. And I like Dak. He had the picks in the game, and at least one of them was avoidable. But I like him, and I think you could still win with him as the face of your franchise. So I think teams sometimes, fan bases are too quick to want to pull the triggers on regimes and get guys out. But I think in the long run, it's detrimental. You're rebuilding. You have different visions within your franchise, your organization. So I hope they keep Mike McCarthy. Don't run that last play, man. I mean, I know it was a long shot anyway, but that thing had no chance. And Frank Caliendo is going to turn it into a Madden and Summerall, and I love those things. I mean, there are very few things I love in our field, what we do, than listening to a Frank Caliendo call.
He is pretty good. We had a call earlier, calling for Jerry Jones to once again step aside, make no player personnel decisions, that, his leadership in that part of the team he owns is the downfall. But my counter to that is, then how do you explain the defense? Does Jerry only pick and select the offensive players? Because they have a defense that's pretty good, Tom. So I don't know how to balance all that. But to me, you can't say Jerry shouldn't be involved in player personnel any longer, but then you got a defense that's probably as good as any in the NFL right now.
Well, good point. And, yeah, their defense was more than good. They were one of the best in the league. And, I'm sure there's a collaborative effort that goes on, and I think Steven has taken more and more of a role in doing that. So, but who's going to tell Jerry Jones what to do, right? So, hopefully the Cowboys can kind of, in the coming years, not at the expense of my Falcons, but, get better, win more playoff games. But you got to think, the 49ers look like with Shanahan, they're kind of, quote, here to stay. Green Bay's probably not going to be down for long. And there are other teams that are like kind of kicking up the notch. I mean, the Detroit Lions almost got in the playoffs. The Giants look like they're going to be a solid team under Daboll. I mean, and the Eagles, who knows what's going to happen with them, but they look pretty doggone stout for years to come. And I know things can change overnight in the NFL, but they look solid. The Vikings, had a really good year. So it's tough. It's a tough battle, man.
Tom, let's talk about everyone else's other favorite football team. That'd be the Arkansas Razorbacks. I thought it was interesting after the Dan Enos news came out and solidified who the offensive coordinator was going to be. The following day, I believe it was Friday, Arkansas's NIL collective announced that KJ had been re-signed for the coming season to kind of quell any rumors or rumblings of him maybe following Kendall Briles to TCU. What was your take when that tweet came out, that announcement came out that they have inked him to another year with NIL agreements at Arkansas?
Yeah. Do you think those were interconnected?
They were welded, not interconnected. They were welded together.
Welded together. I think the fan base needed to hear that. I think it's good for KJ to basically say, because, if it lingers, then you're like, what is KJ thinking? And so hopefully you think of this as being his last year. He's well ingrained here. Nice to see that Rocket was attached to the same deal, because that's your 1-2 punch. And I know there were fans who were very concerned about losing one or both. And can you imagine having to try to rebuild like a new quarterback and all that kind of stuff? I love their running back room, though. And, that's kind of one of I think because it's so stable, I think it's a little bit undervalued how Jimmy Smith, and I did a story on that during the course of the year, how they've been able to keep A.J. Green, and hopefully Dubinion's happy, and that, that whole room produces like it did, because there's very few in the country who are as productive. But I've gone off on a tangent. Hopefully the NIL deal is good, and they stick around for Razorback fans and to reduce the angst in the offseason.
What do you think about the latest commitment from Trajan Jeffcoat out of Missouri? Had a really good, I think, freshman season in 2020. Backed off a little bit, but their latest addition in the portal.
Yeah, heard about him a little over the weekend and thought, wow, now that would be huge. I mean, a veteran pass rusher in the SEC. I haven't gone back and looked at his stats yet, but when you get a guy like that, it can only help your team. You just hope that it's a good mesh in the locker room and that kind of thing. But hey, look, I think there's a little bit of excitement with Travis Williams and Woodson kind of working in combo, and Deke Adams has been a good plus for this staff as well. So I don't know. I think they're going to get some players who are going to enjoy playing for this defensive staff, and maybe Sam Pittman is pushing the right buttons. I think it was good that he got in a former head coach, and that he and Enos can collaborate a little bit, and perhaps they can retain personnel better in the coming offseason.
And still one more full-time assistant to announce, at least. Isn't that right? If I missed something.
Yeah, there is. And, you're not sure, are they going to do Deke Adams, give him half the line and bring in another guy for the line, or bring in a defensive backs guy to split duties with Woodson? They've left that a little bit up in the air. So I do anticipate that it might happen this week.
Yeah, I was wondering, would it be a safety corners set up like we've seen? Because you assume Williams will coach linebackers, or would Deke Adams coach the inside guys and someone else the outside, or vice versa? So that I guess that's the one thing that's somewhat still up in the air, is that 10th and final staff member. And I guess maybe you wanted to solidify the OC to know where your salary pool was, and now you know exactly where you're at if you're Sam Pittman and kind of what you can afford to pay.
Exactly. And, there's a little bit money left over from the 2 coordinator moves, and I'm sure there's been a lot of talks about what's the best fit. Deke, what do you want to do? Woodson, what do you want to do? And because you'd think that Travis would just kind of handle the linebackers. So I'm sure that's been ongoing, and they're probably on the brink of having a guy ready to go.
Tom, last question. Go ahead.
Well, I just mentioned something, too. If they hire an African-American coach, they would be an all-black defensive staff, which would be a real statement, and I think a drawing card for a lot of young recruits.
Tom, last thing before we let you go. There will be probably an impact by the weather on tonight's game, how many fans actually show up to Bud Walton Arena. If there wasn't any inclement weather, I think we'd see a lot more. How do you think season ticket sales are doing for football right now with 2 conference games, or I guess 3 conference games, and then you got 3 others with the other game being in Little Rock? What do you think they're at right now on renewals?
Yeah, I have not heard. I haven't done an update on that yet. But I would like to think that, it wouldn't have backed down any. It might not go up a substantial amount. But, is there going to be excitement going into Sam Pittman year 4? Well, KJ's back. You feel like you're going to have a solid offense with Enos. They need to win tight games. And I think when you do your self-examination in the offseason, why do we lose games? Well, you lost tight games. You didn't have a great red zone conversion percentage. So got to get better in those areas, and then they'll have a chance to win some of these tighter games. I mean, you think they've been in contention with Alabama the last 2 years. If you're doing that, you got a chance. But what you can't do is you can't afford to slip up like they did in the A&M game in a down season for A&M and lose it. So, got to get better.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.